Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents Stories. In our first story we'll be reading today, Karen tells OP they should find another job because they're too slow at what they do. After that, Entitled Kid steals my work and presents it as her own, forgetting that I have years worth of evidence. And after that, my entitled mom used to steal receipts from supermarkets to get money from my dad. And if you're new, please subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. It's been a few weeks since this happened, but I'm over it. I work at a grocery store with online pickups where people pick up their groceries for free, no charges at all. Well, on this fateful day, I was working the closing shift. We were horribly understaffed, so I was working alone. We still have a few orders that haven't been picked up yet for 8 to 10, and it was already 7 p.m. when 3 customers came in at the same time. We have a first-come, first-served basis, so whoever calls our department for pickup first gets their orders first. It usually takes 3 to 10 minutes to load each customer, unless the system goes down, and we have to manually scan each and every item, which takes forever. I also tell customers when there are people ahead of them, so they know when they're gonna expect a few minutes of wait. So, I start loading these 3 customers in order. Lady 1 was thankful for me loading her groceries into her trunk without having to get out. No problems at all. Mind you, it only took me 4 minutes to load her. Now I start loading Lady 2's groceries. I got to her car and she comes out. You can immediately see that she was in a bad mood. No worries, we all have our days, right? Lady 2. Why did it take you so long to load my groceries? Me. I apologize, but I cannot get to everyone immediately. Lady 1 called first, so she got her groceries first. Plus, I'm working alone right now. Lady 2 sighs. All right, just load mine quick. I have to tuck my kids in soon. Reasonable enough. Let's say it took me between 7 to 10 minutes loading hers, since it was a huge load. She thanked me and drove off. Now I start loading Lady 3's order. She also had a huge order, so it took me a couple of minutes to get to her. As I get her order out of our department store, I see her stomping towards me. She was angry. I know she was, but I really wasn't expecting it. I was tired. I've been working since 12 p.m. and I had to rush my lunch and not take any 15-minute breaks, at least until the end of my shift where everything slows down. I wasn't able to say anything back until she took a deep breath after a few minutes of her rant. Lady 3. Insert really long rant about how long her wait is, how she has chores to do still, and that we should compensate her for her time. Me. Miss, I'm really sorry about the long wait. I had to load the customers ahead of you, and I'm currently alone. Lady 3. Well, maybe you should schedule more people then. Me. I can't do that, miss. I'm not the department manager, and I don't decide who works when. I don't care. I'm expecting a full refund for this. You and your department are incapable of accommodating your customers' needs. A full refund of $600 worth of groceries with no pickup fees for 15 minutes of her time? Me. I can't issue you a full refund. I can get you a $10 voucher for the inconvenience, but a full refund is impossible. And as I said earlier, I was working alone. You should find another job if you can't load all of us under 5 minutes. And if you won't issue the full refund, I'll take this to the head manager, and I'm getting you fired. I just stood there, shocked. I wasn't able to respond at all. Now, put all my groceries into the back of my car. You've wasted too much of my time already. I hope they fire you. She went back into her car, and I just loaded her as fast as I could, because I just don't want to deal with this anymore. After she drove off, I sent an email to our department manager regarding this, and they sent her a $25 voucher because customers are always right. Maybe I should really find another job. Next, we've got Entitled Kid steals my work and presents it as her own, forgetting that I have years of evidence. In secondary school, I started making the groundwork for a book I want to publish someday. Next May, it'll officially be 6 years in the making, so I've put a lot of time into it. Tolkien spent 13 years working with barely 5 races and a single continent, while I'm not just working with multiple continents, but at least 18 separate realms, each with their own calendars, seasons, how gravity works, around 7 different magic systems, over 100 separate races, thousands of relevant animals, history regarding the races, and stuff like that. Not to mention biomes, original biomes, planet size, solar system shape, constellations. Basically, I've put a lot of work into this. Every now and again, I show this off to my friends or my teachers so they can either help me, give critical feedback, or things along those lines. The teacher, who I'll call Nice Teacher, had been a real help regarding grammar and so on. I know that no author is perfect, and that's what editors are for. But I want to be proud of my work, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. To make sure I don't accidentally screw up my Word documents, I have everything saved on 2 pen drives. One is 50 gigs, and the other is 14 gigs. The 50 gig is never to leave the house, so I use the 14 gig as a sort of transporter to other computers to do work on it. Now that's been explained, time to talk about the swollen sponge that is Entitled Kid. She too is an aspiring writer, but unlike myself, she is aiming towards doing another Twilight or Hunger Games. I let her know that if she did her own thing, she wouldn't be drowned in the copies upon copies of the same story but with different people. The writing business is cutthroat and vicious, and by standing out, the audience is more likely to notice your work than Twilight 99.88876. Entitled Kid appeared to have taken this advice well, but as I have all the social graces of a broken chair, I must have missed something because she didn't really want to talk to me after that. Around that time, there was a sudden rumor sprung from the gutters that I was a plagiarist and that I was homophobic. Being the daughter of a lesbian, I don't really see the logic of that, but I ignored it. I had better things to do with my time. On a Tuesday or a Monday, I was with Nice Teacher who was helping me regarding why specific races lived in specific countries. I won't go into detail because we'll be here all millennia, but I made some good progress. I automatically sent it to myself via email because I'm extremely paranoid about losing work, and yet I somehow forgot my drive. It wasn't the first time I had done this, hence why I have 2 of them, and the 50 gig never leaves the house. Best to lose only a day's work than over a year's worth. I was saddened that I had lost it, but it never occurred to me that someone would use that work. I had to ask my mom for money to get a new one because I'm broke, and it was a 16 gig. Not much difference, but it suited its purpose. When I told Entitled Kid about this while we were in the same class, she gave sympathy and then started talking about the book she wanted to make. She had some fun ideas, not gonna lie, but she didn't have any evidence of such work. I told her to write it all down, but she said that she had gotten a new flash drive, can never remember their names, and it would be fine. I never connected the dots, so I gave a little bit of praise over it. She then started talking about a competition surrounding concepts or whatever that was coming up, and it sounded good, so I thought about entering along with her. I wrote a short story about a folktale or a campfire story that'd be in my book at some point for some fun and entered. I didn't expect to win, I was just there for some fun. Entitled Kid obviously entered as well. When everyone gathered in the assembly to hear the winners and what work they provided that led to such a victory, I was curious. I was sitting on my own because the rumors about me being a plagiarist and homophobe were still going around for whatever reason. One kid even telling me to leave out of fear I'd steal their work. That kid entered a dystopia about Pepper Pig, so I'm not sure what I was supposed to steal. And when it was announced that Entitled Kid had won, I was congratulatory despite not winning. A sore loser isn't going to get far in life after all. But when she proudly read out what she had written, my heart froze. She read out a very short draft I had made about one of my characters and how they felt after their species just got out of civil war and how tense it was. It was unmistakable. The country's name, the character's name, the species name, the mentioning of certain locations. I was horrified. Finally, the Lego pieces clicked. This embodiment of a bacterial infection had my missing drive. I was so angry that I left and proceeded to have a crying fit in the bathroom because of what Entitled Kid had changed about it. The character mentioned had gone from being a hardened war hero to an edgy teen in love with the character who started the bloody war in the first place, which had ended the lives of millions for her own selfish gain. It felt like my baby had been mutilated. I confronted Entitled Kid about what she had done and wanted to know why she had done such a thing, but she pretended ignorance and went to the principal of our bloody school to complain that I was stealing her work. I was called to principal's office along with my mom and the mom of Entitled Kid, who was an entitled mound of dog feces. Because my memory is rather poor, I can't fully say what was said, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. The entitled mom went into a rant about how evil I was, how her daughter was so perfect, like her crap didn't smell, and so on. She reached full Mr. Reddit screeching until principal threatened to make her sit outside to shut her up. Principal wouldn't expel either of us as she wanted, but she wanted this to be done with, as she takes plagiarism very seriously. She asked Entitled Kid first about the situation, and she painted me as some kind of horrible person while throwing in slurs here and there, with her mom grinning like she has no cheeks. My mom, of course, was horrified at such language being used so casually. Principal was obviously annoyed with it herself. She turned to me and asked my side, and I said that Entitled Kid was filled with more crap than manure. I admittedly fell into the rabbit hole of rants about how angry I was that a character I had worked hard to build had been butchered so horribly to fulfill the fantasy of a nobody. Entitled Mom got furious that I would dare insinuate that her daughter lied. Then my mom got mad that she was yelling at me, and Entitled Kid got mad at me for making her mom mad, and I returned the favor. Principal had to bang a book on the desk to get us all to shut up like she were a judge, and she turned to me and said that I needed proof of my claims. What Entitled Kid didn't know was that I was prepared to break a golden rule of mine for the purpose of this meeting. I brought in Dear Mr. 50 Gig. I had it inside my wallet that was chained to my pants so it couldn't be stolen, and put it in front of Principal. At that moment, Nice Teacher walked in to give the principal some photocopied sheets of something, and I took my chance. I asked her what we had done a few days ago, and she said she was helping me with name of country that Entitled Kid claimed was hers. I asked her the name of the hero of the war in that country, and she said the name Entitled Kid claimed as hers. I asked her who started the war, and she confusedly said the name Entitled Kid had twisted into being a love interest. In the meantime, Principal was looking at what I had done on the computer and concluded that it was Entitled Kid who stole, not me. Entitled Mom proceeded to throw a massive fit, grabbing Principal's computer and smashing it. I nearly died at the thought of 50 gig being destroyed, but it was okay. This got her kicked out of the room and banned from the school, along with a fine for the destroyed property. Entitled Kid was mad that I had caught her. She yelled at Principal for siding with a homophobe. My mom pointed out that she was a lesbian, so that point kind of lost any meaning. I then figured out that she was the one who was spreading these things about me. Likely was a way to project her guilt to make her feel better. Principal wasn't having any of it and banned her from entering competitions along with giving back my drive. She responded by dropping it in a cup of water, and I was glad as it destroyed all of the damaged art I had made. She didn't get more of a comeuppance than that, and the rumors remained until college. I saw her there and felt it right for me to rant. Have a safe year, people. Next we've got My entitled mom used to steal receipts from supermarkets to get money from my dad. So, a little backstory. I'm 22 and from Poland. My dad ran his own company since 1990 and was doing pretty darn good job. In a few years, he managed to make enough money to marry my mother, entitled mom, raise my older sister, and build his own house. Times were tough in this part of Europe, so having your own house and not worrying about the expenses was some kind of privilege. While my dad was working his butt off, entitled mom was a stay-at-home parent who only worked like 3 years in her life. But never mind, my dad could afford that, and there was no reason for her to go to work. Eventually, in the late 2000s, the company profits decreased and began to lose partnerships, which finally ended up with my dad closing his business in 2013. He decided to immigrate to Norway, where he could have earned up to 10 times more than here, and with much less stress. My sister was already out of the family house with her baby. Lucky girl, she ran 200 miles away to another city from my mother. Another story. And I was a 16-year-old high schooler at the time, so me and my mother stayed at home in Poland. And this leads us to the entitled parent story you have all came for. My dad is the most caring and honorable sweetheart I've ever known, and when he moved to Norway, he wanted to make sure me and my mother had everything we needed, so he would give my mom decent amounts of money to buy food and other essentials people need in their everyday lives. He would also pay our bills while he was abroad, all way more than enough to have a decent existence. My mother, on the other hand, has always been a compulsive buyer and couldn't handle any expenses. A lot of our house was filled with 30 different sets of plates, pillows, and furniture. She was spending money on the most bizarre things and beauty treatments, all while she was still unemployed, although me and my sister were in preschool since we were 3. I was working for my own expenses full-time during the summer since I was 15, so I could buy myself stuff like a laptop, phone, or clothes, and also have the money to enjoy time with my friends. My dad taught me to earn the money if I wanted to spoil myself, so I did. A few months after my dad immigrated, he started noticing that my mother was spending way too much money and was begging for more only a week after she got some. She would complain about how hard it is for her to take care of such a huge house, buy food, and raise a teenage daughter who has medical issues all the time and needs to go to the doctor every other week. That's all BS. I never had any issues, and even if I did, the medical care in Poland is free as well as the insurance. My father is a wise man and wouldn't believe her BS, so he came up with a solution. He would give her the equivalent of $2,000 every month, and she would provide him with the receipts from grocery stores, private doctors, and other necessary stuff the money was sent for. Entitled mom was furious, and I mean it, but eventually she agreed to the idea. Everything was going fine for 2 months. My mom actually proved how much money was spent for the house, food, and me, and my dad was sending $500 more every month, which made me sick to look at. I knew my mom was hoarding most of that money, because I was basically providing for myself, besides the food part. And she wasn't even hiding that fact in front of me. Quite the opposite. She used to brag about how smart she is, that she's taking other people's receipts from supermarkets and going to the private doctor's office to collect them. I was shocked and furious. It was dehumanizing for me. How could that woman fall so low to take other people's receipts from the floor by the cashiers? Well, I knew she once stole my father's money from the car he sold. I'll tell this story in another post if somebody would be interested. But this was too much. She was a liar and was laughing in my face about how stupid my dad was. I am not a very confrontational person, and I didn't want to argue with her manipulative self. So I decided to tell my dad about her BS as soon as he came home, and it wasn't very long. Dad came back to Poland for Christmas, and he wanted to count all the bills and receipts with entitled mom. They said in the home office, and I just listened. My father knew that something wasn't clicking and politely asked entitled mom about all the expenses she made. She immediately started to scream and curse at him how comfortable he is abroad with all the money he makes now, and he doesn't realize how hard it is to maintain a house alone. What the heck? You never even had to raise a finger in your life. This quickly turned into more of her cursing and crying, and finally throwing things at my poor dad. My mom is really abusive sometimes and doesn't have any control of her anger. That was, of course, her manipulative acting, so my dad wouldn't dwell on the subject. After a few minutes of this meltdown, she ran from the office to have a cigarette in our backyard. So I took that as a chance and I told my dad about what she was bragging about to me and how she was lying to him. He never said a word. He just stood there with a straight face of disappointment. I was so sorry for him, knowing he's been working his butt off to give us a good life, and this leech of a woman was just stealing and hoarding money from him. He told me to leave the room so he could finish the talk. Entitled mom came back from the cig visually more calm. She knew she couldn't act because she would lose the source of money, but she didn't expect I would tell my dad about all her lies. I don't really want to tell you what was said because it would lead me to blanking all the text from the curses. All I can say is that entitled mom was enraged. She was trying to make more excuses for her behavior, such as, "Your daughter is wearing old and dirty clothes." Lies. "I just want her to have a decent life and not to be picked by other kids." "You're gonna be greedy about your daughter's health? How dare you?" But my father wouldn't take it. He ended up not only giving her just 25% monthly of what she got before, but he said that he would give me the money for what I need personally to my bank account. She wasn't having it, but she had to deal with it. Sadly, her attitude towards money never changed, and she's still a parasite, even after she had to find a job abroad the same year because my dad said he's done with paying the bills only for himself. I am very sorry for my father every day because he has to deal with her every day of his life, even though they've been working in 2 different countries. It's hard to be raised by an entitled parent, but imagine being married to one. God. And shoutouts to our re-generals of the day, Chissy Spider, Eduardo, and Samua. Become our next re-generals by leaving as many re's as you can in the comments below.